The last time we saw Peter Griffin, he decided that he wanted to pursue college football. And it turns out that he was a lot better than anybody expected, as he became a star player for the UMass Minutemen.
All right, I made a touchdown.
And Peter was so great that he actually ended up winning Player of the Year, along with turning UMass's program around, bringing them to their first appearance in the college football playoffs, where they would eventually lose to Georgia. And in the offseason, after talking about his future with his family and friends, Peter Griffin had decided to enter the transfer portal. Whereas the best running back in the country, Peter had options to go pretty much anywhere and be a starter. But the thing is, he still didn't want to relocate away from his family and friends in Quahog. But he also knew he needed to make the best decision for his career. So when it came to Peter Griffin's sophomore season college decision, he decided to sign with Boston College. And now that Peter Griffin is with Boston College, he gets to have his favorite number, 68. But that was only the beginning of the good news, because when looking at the roster, he saw that his quarterback was probably one of the best ones in the country, and then saw that Boston College also had some pretty good skill players at other positions as well. Not to mention an offensive line that should be able to help open some holes for him all season. But then Peter got news from a reporter that his quarterback was going to be out for the entire season. And Peter was clearly not too happy about this. He responded to it as bluntly as he could. And I've never seen this before, but apparently now the backup quarterback is in his own head. So this was definitely not a great way to start off the season, but at least Peter came into the first practice embarrassing some of the defenders.
Can't stop, won't stop, might go. Oh, nope, going back the other way.
But now it is time for Peter to get into his first game as an Eagle against the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Now Peter started off his season just how he'd been playing all of last year, barreling over multiple defenders on his way to a big-time first down. Now unfortunately their opening drive would result in 3 points, but that was better than what the rest of the half would look like for this offense, as they would end up getting picked off right before half. And so far in this game, they were really having trouble getting much of anything going. It wasn't until later on in the third quarter where Peter was finally able to get in the end zone for his first touchdown as an Eagle. And this was the most excited I've ever seen Peter for a touchdown.
Yay, now I can fist bump with black guys.
Nailed it, Peter. There you go.
Yeah, we going to the club tonight?
Not you.
Okay.
By late in the fourth quarter, Boston College was down by 3. And Peter was doing everything he could to help get his team into scoring position. But unfortunately, Peter's quarterback had other plans, as he ends up throwing a pick that would ultimately go on to seal this game away. And Peter would go on to lose his first game with Boston College, 16-10. And it was too bad, considering he had a pretty good game, going for over 100 yards rushing and 50 yards receiving. But going into the following week, Peter realized that he had the perfect opportunity to bounce back against his old team. And looking at their roster, Peter feels pretty confident that Boston College will be able to take care of business, especially considering that they definitely got worse with Peter off the team now. So Peter just spent some time working on upgrading his speed before going into his second game of the season, as Boston College was set to face off against UMass. And against his old team, Peter was out here just trucking defenders. He definitely came locked in, but it seemed like the rest of his team did too, as they ended up getting in for a touchdown later on to put the first points on the board in this game. But then on a play where Peter goes out for a route and doesn't even call for the ball, the quarterback throws it to him anyway, and it ends up getting picked off and returned to the crib for 6, giving UMass their first points. But it's all good though, because before the end of the quarter, Peter takes his ball to the outside and says, hey, picking up a first down for his team and moving the sticks. But then BC decides to start getting creative and pulls out a reverse pass, and somehow they actually complete it. And now it's Jaden McGowan going all the way down the field for a touchdown on the trick play. This offense wasn't finished going up and down the field though, because with Peter's help they got all the way down to the goal line, where the backup quarterback takes his read option and gets himself in the end zone for another score, making it now a 2-possession lead, but UMass is barely even fighting back as the game progresses. And with Boston College picking up fourth down conversions, they were bound to get themselves down towards the goal line once again, where Peter Griffin would rush in for his first touchdown of the game against his old team, and at the same time, putting this game out of reach, with Boston College winning their first game of the season 28-17, with Peter Griffin having led the way with over 150 yards rushing and a touchdown. But now that Peter was playing in bigger conferences, he was also getting bigger offers for NIL deals, and he actually accepted a deal from one of his favorite car dealerships.
Hi, I'm Peter Griffin. We will blitz the competition, and in no time, you'll be driving your new Hyundai or Subaru right to a touchdown. At Wilkins Hyundai and Subaru, We have Hyundais and Subarus.
But going into the following week, Peter had his first road game of the season, and it would be against one of the best teams in the country, the Michigan State Spartans. Now, one thing about Peter Griffin is that he always ran like he didn't give a damn about who was in his way. And it was hard not to see that, as on almost every run you could witness someone's soul leaving their body. Peter clearly had no regard for the Spartans, as he just annihilates the defender before crossing over the goal line for a touchdown, taking the lead in this game 7-0 before Michigan comes back and ties it up. But Peter Griffin came out there determined to take that lead back once again, bringing his team all the way down to the goal line, where he would once again barrel over a couple defenders for another touchdown, taking the lead once again. And now with his teammates making plays, they have a chance to really keep the lead. Peter went out for a swing pass in this play, and he ends up catching this ball and diving into the end zone for a touchdown, extending the lead to 2 possessions, and it would stay that way up until the fourth quarter, where even though Boston College's offense began to stall out, Michigan's offense never even got started, and Boston College would end up closing this game out 21-10, with Peter leading the way once again with another 150-plus yard performance and 3 touchdowns. He also went on to have 9 receptions for 93 yards, but Peter was still focused on just improving his skills. He knew that for Boston College to have any chance of making the playoffs, let alone win a national title, he had to reach his potential. So he went into his next game of the season against San Jose State, looking to come away with another game-changing performance. Now, Peter did not start this game out well at all. He started running on his route on this play, and it ended up getting picked off and returned all the way back to the crib for 6. But Peter had said he stopped because of something he saw in the stands.
You got no class, you bitch! No, you got no class! Come on, Miyagi, take that karate outside.
As the game went on, though, this offense got back on track, and Peter led them all the way down to the goal line, where he would eventually punish a defender before crossing over the goal line for a touchdown, tying the game up at 7. But Peter was not done yet, because he ended up taking this screen pass, and he went absolutely beast mode on these guys, breaking off multiple tacklers before getting himself in the end zone for a touchdown, magically giving Boston College the lead before half.
Ta-da!
But it wouldn't stay that way after the quarterback comes out after halftime and throws an interception, setting San Jose up with perfect field position to score. And although they would eventually score, Peter Griffin in this Boston College was working all too well, as he gets in for another touchdown on the day, but not before they got the ball back later on in the fourth quarter, and his teammate actually gets in for another touchdown to close the game out, with Boston College going on to win this game 28-14, and Peter didn't even have to have that many yards, going for under 100 this game, but still 3 touchdowns. And when looking at his remaining schedule, he realizes that he might be able to steamroll his way into the playoffs if he can just keep up what he's been doing already. But Peter also wanted to make sure that he was making time for his friends, and Peter was having more fun than the time he won the Boston Marathon.
I'm Bob Costas, here with Boston Marathon winner Peter Griffin. Peter, how did you do it?
I'll tell you, Bob, I just got in my car and drove it. And when there was a guy in my way, I killed him.
But now it's time for Peter to get into another home game, as he and the Eagles are set to face off against 16th ranked SMU. Boston College had started out this game like they had done previously, by getting Peter the ball and allowing him to bring them downfield. They got him the ball out in the flat, where he was able to outrun a defender and get himself around the edge into the end zone for a touchdown, giving Boston College the lead. But the cool thing about Peter is that he was also evolving as a player. He was working on becoming a one-cut back who could take it up the gap and find his way with a bunch of open space, kinda like what you're seeing on this play, as Peter Griffin is able to outrun the entire defense for a touchdown, easily the longest run of his season so far. But in a game that remained tied up until 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter, this Boston College offense was doing a great job getting themselves in position to take the lead. And after this carry from Peter Griffin goes to the outside and into the end zone for a touchdown, it turns out that would be enough to put this game away, with Boston College winning 21-14, and Peter Griffin staying consistent with around 150 yards and 3 more touchdowns. And Peter was feeling great about how his season was going so far. He just wanted to keep this momentum going into his next game against Georgia Tech, where apparently the rest of the team also wanted to keep the momentum going as well. Well, everybody except the quarterback, that is, who ends up throwing another interception on his season, this one going all the way back to the crib for 6. And in a game where Georgia Tech's defense was actually playing pretty well, forcing Peter Griffin to be a short yardage merchant. It still wouldn't be enough, as Peter would eventually take a handoff at the goal line and get Boston College in for their first touchdown of the game. But then out of nowhere, this game would turn into a defensive battle up until the fourth quarter, where Peter was trying his best to make his impact felt more in the passing game, and it seemed to be working. He was even able to say hey and get his team within goal-to-goal territory. And after chewing some of this clock down, Peter was able to get himself in the end zone for another score to effectively end this game for Boston College, as they go on to escape this game 17-14, with Peter going for another game over 100 yards and adding 2 more touchdowns, not to mention the extra 100 yards through the air off of 8 receptions, earning himself his first Offensive Player of the Week of the season. Now, unfortunately, Peter's grades were not doing too well, but that was a sacrifice that he had to make in order to spend some more time with his daughter Meg.
Dad, get away from me! Dad,
Peter's Fudge, coming to get you! Peter's Fudge, coming to get you! Here comes Peter's Fudge, coming to get you! Oh, in the kitchen, Meg!
But now, as the season is moving on, Peter is ready to get into his next game against an ACC opponent, the Clemson Tigers. Now, unfortunately, to start this game off, BC's quarterback is fumbling the ball and turning it over to Clemson right away. But Boston is lucky that they only scored 3 points, allowing them an opportunity to come back out on offense and move their way downfield, eventually getting them right down towards the goal line in a great position for Peter to take this handoff, where he was able to just walk into the end zone before being tackled well after the play. What is this? With this game still tied in the fourth quarter, Peter and this offense really shifted gears and tried to get things going. They were having a rough game on the ground, as even though they were down at the goal line, they were continuously being stopped and eventually had to end their drive with 3 points. But luckily, by the end of the game, Clemson's offense has struggled worse than BC's, and Boston College would go on to survive 13-10, with Peter probably having the worst game of the season, but still doing enough to close it out. Now, when it comes to season stats so far, Peter is actually 3rd in the country in rushing, but that's not quite good enough for him, so he's doing his best to maximize his power, and he's making sure that he gets into his game day routine for the following game.
what the hell? Are you out of your mind?
But now Peter is ready to get into another home game in Boston, as he and the Eagles are set to face off against California. To start this game off, Peter is running with absolute reckless abandon. I mean, he's out here practicing his truck before using it on his victims, easily bulldozing his team inside the 10-yard line, where he would eventually make another catch right over the middle for a touchdown to start this game off. And it really was a game where Peter was making his presence felt as a pass catcher, but he was still a dominant runner, especially in short yardage situations, as he got in for another touchdown with less than 10 seconds left in the half. And with California showing little to no resistance on offense or defense in this game, one more Peter Griffin touchdown would eventually put this game away, with Boston College finishing off the drive 21-13, and Peter getting back to over 100 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns, earning himself another ACC Offensive Player of the Week. But this season is only heating up for Peter, especially as he's about to go on the road and face off against Syracuse. Now, at this point in his career, Peter Griffin had become such a physically imposing presence that there weren't too many guys who were trying to tackle him by themselves. Even then, Peter could not stop his quarterback from throwing interceptions all season. Peter was just lucky that he had a defense that constantly got stops and/or set them up with great field position, allowing Peter to actually take this handoff and cross over the goal line for the touchdown, putting the first points on the board in this game. But Peter wasn't the only offensive weapon to show up in this game, as wide receiver Jaden McGowan got free for a touchdown to make this a 14-point ball game. But with Peter Griffin being the best running back in the country, he was bound to have some games where he could break off tacklers and spring himself loose for a wide open lane to the end zone for a score, as Peter Griffin makes his way past the goal line for another touchdown, and he's out here throwing up the Heisman Trophy because he knows he's coming for it. And it becomes pretty clear that he might actually deserve it after making this catch and breaking off a tackle from half the roster on Syracuse, absolutely just embarrassing these guys on his way to the end zone for another touchdown on the game. And I don't know if Syracuse had done something to Peter, but he was not done yet, because after sending this defender to a Michael Jackson concert, Peter is wide open down the sideline, and he is making his way all the way down the field inside the 5-yard line for his team, getting himself in the end zone for another touchdown to finally put this game away, as Boston College goes on to win 35-7, and Peter having the best game of his season with 237 yards and 4 touchdowns. Not to mention the extra 90 yards on 6 receptions, earning himself his first National Offensive Player of the Week of the season. And with 3 games left of the regular season, Peter Griffin and his Boston College team had no plans of slowing down. And they definitely didn't, as they ended up beating Stanford and Louisville like they stole something. But now finally going into the last game of the regular season, Boston College is set to face off against their first formidable opponent in a while, the number 22nd ranked Pittsburgh. And this was a game that was surprising to not only Boston College, but to Pittsburgh as well, considering it was being played on their home field. Because in the first half, Peter Griffin leads his team up 14-0, and even by the time the third quarter rolls around, it doesn't really seem like Pittsburgh is fighting back. But it only got worse after Jaden McGowan would end up breaking loose over the top, finding his way streaking downfield for another touchdown on his season to extend the lead. And by the fourth quarter, up 17 points, Peter was looking to make it even worse, as he takes his ball around the edge and ends up getting in the end zone for another score, effectively ending this game, as Boston College would go on to win it 31-10. And probably for the first time ever, I got to see somebody play back-to-back games against the same team. So Peter got all readied up to play in the ACC Championship again against Pittsburgh. And although this game did not start off the way that Boston College had wanted it, with the quarterback throwing a pick six on their opening possession, it didn't really seem to matter when you had playmakers in the backfield and on the outside, as Jaden McGowan broke free for a touchdown to bring Boston College back in the game right before half. And by the time the fourth quarter round, Peter had finally been able to get this offense going, bringing them all the way down towards the goal line, where a couple plays later he tucked it in for another touchdown on his season, and with under a minute left, that would be enough to put this game away, as Boston College goes on to win 14-10. And Peter definitely having the worst game of his season by far, but that's okay, because now that the season's over, it's actually time for awards. And it turns out that Peter Griffin had once again won Player of the Year, going for over 1,700 yards rushing with 23 touchdowns. An absolute monster of a season that rightfully so had this time earned him the Heisman Trophy after being snubbed last year. And of course, Peter would go on to win a bunch of other awards like All-American and Best Running Back, stuff like that, and it was hard not to see why after ending the season as the nation's leading rusher, while still being one of the most impactful receivers in the country as well. But the best thing about all this was that he actually earned his team a bye week in the playoffs, meaning that he would have time to take on this NIL deal that would have him singing some Christmas music.
Presents A Peter Griffin Christmas, featuring such standards as
Everybody look at the snow in the yard.
And who could forget
I brought these gifts for you, they're up in my bum.
But now that it's time for the postseason, Boston College is set to play in their first ever college football playoffs. And in this second round, they're facing off against Texas A&M. And at the perfect time of the year, there seems to be another offensive weapon emerging in this offense, with Jaden McGowan going in for an early touchdown to start this game off. And that was well needed considering that other than that play, this offense had been struggling greatly throughout the first half. They wouldn't start picking it up until later on in the second quarter, where they would ultimately get themselves down towards the goal line, where Peter Griffin would finish off the drive with a touchdown to take the lead, but that wouldn't remain the case for long as Texas A&M would come and tie it up. And with both offenses now struggling in the second half, this game would end up coming down to the fourth quarter, where on this play the Boston College quarterback throws an interception in their own territory that would most likely end this game. But unfortunately, Texas A&M must be brain dead, as they not only do not capitalize on this, but they allow this game to go into overtime and only score 3 points, meaning like the many times he did in the previous year, he would have a chance to bring his team in for an overtime touchdown to win the game. But this game, it would actually be Jaden McGowan who would come up with another touchdown reception to send Boston College to the second round of the playoffs, winning this game 23-20, even with a lackluster performance by Peter Griffin. But at this point, Peter knew that it wouldn't be likely that they would keep winning if he keeps playing like this. He had to keep getting better and come out in his next game against Texas Tech and be a difference maker if he wanted to lead his team to the national championship. But unfortunately, this game was just not starting out the way that Peter wanted it to. He got stopped on third down on their opening possession, leading to a 3-and-out. And then he came out on their next drive, backed up against their own goal line, and fumbled it for one of the first times all season, giving it away to Texas Tech, who pretty easily took advantage of it and went in for a touchdown. Now luckily, a 7-point deficit was nothing for Peter to fight back from. And along with the help of Jaden McGowan, who was once again getting open downfield for a touchdown, this game would suddenly be tied up at 7. But in a game where Peter Griffin was honestly getting stopped up in the backfield multiple times, even failing to convert on third down where he was needed most, at some point this offense had to look towards another star. And backed up against their own goal line, it was Jaden McGowan who was getting open once again, coming up huge for this Boston College team all throughout the playoffs, but no bigger than he was right now as he goes in for a 95-yard touchdown with less than a minute left. And that would be enough to send Boston College to the national championship, as they go on to win this game 14-10. And Jaden McGowan rightfully so earning himself player of the game, But now that Boston College is headed to the national championship, Peter is surprised to find out that when he looks at the bracket, he's going to be facing off against Old Dominion, who I guess at first glance seems like a weak team, but they have been scoring a lot on their previous opponents. So Peter and this Boston College offense came into this game knowing that they might have to put up a lot of points to keep up, but they were willing to do whatever it takes to come away with a victory against Old Dominion. Now out the gate, Peter was clearly not messing around, breaking free for a huge run where he would eventually truck over a guy and pick up a huge first down. And he would keep it going on this drive even when it was 3rd and long, taking this screen pass upfield where he would break off a couple tacklers and pick up the first down for his team. And by the end of this drive, he was taking his catch on the outside and bringing it up into the end zone for a touchdown to take the lead. And he was definitely happy about this, but he had realized pretty quick that Old Dominion's offense was not playing around. Luckily, it didn't seem like Boston College's was either, because Jaden McGowan was coming up with another big play in the playoffs, making this catch and bringing the Eagles all the way upfield into the end zone for a touchdown, taking the lead right back. And now in a game where Peter knows that he can't really afford to miss out on points, he's doing whatever he can, whether on the ground or through the air, to get his team in great field position. And with under 10 seconds left, he's actually able to come up with the catch across the middle for a touchdown, taking the lead back in this game right before half. And now with the opportunity to maintain the lead, it was Jaden McGowan who was coming up with another catch in the back of the end zone to put this Boston College offense up 2 scores. And in a game where much of the success can be attributed to Jaden McGowan on the outside, you still can't forget that this team would be nowhere near the national championship if it weren't for Peter Griffin. Where on this 4th and 2, he actually smashes his way in the end zone for another touchdown to extend their lead further. And now with about 2 minutes left, Peter is running like a demon. I mean, he's out here saying shaplaka, running up and saying hey, bringing his team down inside the goal line once again, where he would take another handoff up the middle for a touchdown to make it a 17-point ball game. And ultimately, this would be the touchdown to put the nail in the coffin and put this game away, with Boston College going on to win their first ever national championship. Led by Peter Griffin's 4 touchdowns, this program for the first time ever was at the top of the mountain. And Peter Griffin, after a long 2 years of being the best running back in the country, he would finally solidify his name amongst the legends as not just a Heisman winner, but a national champion. Now, as far as Peter's season stats, he almost had 2,000 yards rushing, and he actually ended up as a top 5 receiver in the country. He broke multiple season records with Boston College, along with actually now holding multiple career records as well. But the most important thing that he had done throughout his career so far was become a national champion, and he couldn't wait to get home and celebrate that with his wife and kids.
Yeah!
Peter, how are you doing that?
I don't know, Lois. I'm scared. I get help. Call somebody.
Who do I call?
I don't know. A police, a fire, a scientist. Call a scientist.
Oh, okay, you can stay here with your father. I'm gonna go find a scientist.
Am I gonna die?
But this was part 2 of Peter Griffin's road to glory. And if you want to see Peter Griffin potentially make it to the NFL, be sure to get this video to 1,000 likes and subscribe to the channel down below. Also be sure to comment down below who else you guys want to see next. But don't forget to check out some of these other stories until the next one comes out. If you got to this point in the video, just know that I appreciate you more than you'll ever know. I hope all of your college football and NFL teams win this weekend, and other than that, I'm gonna catch you guys next time.